Good evening. Thank you for coming. My name is Joni Marsh. I'm the Assistant City Manager with the City of Longmont for External Services. The airport is in my group, so David worked for me. And we are in the process, as you all know, of looking at how we're going to move forward at the airport. We will be replacing David's position and working on getting that job description posted with our HR department probably in the next 2 weeks. We also have a maintenance position that was funded in the budget for 2022. So we'll be looking at having some additional help at the airport. You might notice right now you've seen some of the city public works staff out at the airport. And Matt McKenzie is our transportation manager for maintenance. So Matt and his group have been helping out, making sure stuff gets done. I think the lights got changed today. They've been busy helping do some things, cleaning out the Niwot ditch and doing some other work that I think has been overdue from a maintenance perspective. So Matt and his group will continue to do that for the time being. And if you have questions, you can always direct them to me, and happy to route you to the right folks. We are recording the meeting tonight. Dallas is our recorder, and Dallas is just recording it so that those folks who weren't able to come tonight could watch it later. So I'd like to introduce, I think all of you know Marika Unger. Marika is the city's public information manager, but she also happens to be one of your fellow pilots, so I know you're familiar. And Marika is going to kind of keep up with the communications and make sure that you guys know what's happening as it comes. You've seen some of her emails. She's also sent out the survey that I think a lot of you responded to, and we'll do some compilation and get those responses out. Howard asked about that and be happy to do that here shortly, once I get some time for that. And as you probably know, we have in the interim hired the Aviation Consulting Management Group out of Centennial, and Jeff Kohlman is their managing principal. Jeff is actually also on site at the airport for this project. And so we thought this would be a great chance for those of you who haven't had the time to stop by the airport office and meet Jeff, to get to know a little bit about him, put a name to a face, albeit with a mask, and ask him some questions. And the durations of their contract with the city is through January, so it's a 3-month contract. This is not a permanent arrangement, but certainly an arrangement that will help us look at our businesses at the airport, look at all the things that it's a good opportunity to take a look, move forward, and that's kind of where we're at. And I'm always happy to answer questions. So feel free to call me if you need my card before you leave tonight. Happy to leave some of those with you. I'm at the city manager's office downtown, but happy to come out to the airport, as I've been doing many times now, much more so than before. And with that, I think I'll just turn it over to Jeff and let him do some introductions and perhaps take some questions. And we're happy to not make this super formal and talk afterwards. So thank you very much for spending an hour with us this evening. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Joni. Thank you for taking your time to come. And as Joni said, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on who AMCG is myself. I do want to give you a little bit of our background, but really here to let you have the opportunity to ask some questions. I'm not going to guarantee you I have the answers or that Joni or Marika has the answers, but we certainly will take them with us and get those to you. If we are able to answer them tonight, we certainly will do that. So as Joni said, I'm the managing principal of Aviation Management Consulting Group. We're based down near Centennial Airport. I founded the company about 24 years ago. Next January will be our 25th anniversary. I've got 12 employees. Most of them are based here in Denver, but I have offices in California, Missouri, and Florida. We do aviation management consulting for a variety of industry stakeholders: airports, aviation businesses, aviation associations, state aviation agencies, including CDOT, a lot of other industry stakeholders, including aircraft owners and operators. Our primary focus is general aviation. So while we work throughout the aviation industry, I would say 90% of our work is with general aviation issues, general aviation airports, general aviation businesses. We've been involved both in direct airport management. Many of my team members, either prior to joining my firm or while with our firm, has been full-time airport managers or interim airport managers at a number of airports around the country. I'm going to give partial names. I'm thinking most of you guys will know these. Reno Stead, Hawthorne in California, Santa Monica in California, Evansville in Indiana, Sacramento, McClellan, Aspen, Boulder, and Scottsdale. We're currently doing an interim airport management up at Boulder right now as well. That's actually how Longmont got our name and brought us in. So that's the Aviation Management Consulting Group. Myself, I've been in the industry for about 35 years. I know I don't look that old. I've been a consultant for 28 years. I'm an active pilot and an aircraft owner. I'll probably end up flying the plane up here a few times during the next few months. I'm a member of about every national and state aviation association, including ALPA, got my hat. I'm a lifetime member, so I do support them quite well. EAA, all of the CAA, CABA, COPA memberships here in the state as well. When I come into a project, whether it's airport management, aviation business management, safety, security, and service, those are my priorities and the services that we provide and what I try to insert into the mindset of our clients, safety, security, and service. So in some of the communications you might get from me over the next 3 months, that's sort of going to be my focus. My role is not to come out and make a lot of changes here at the airport or make any major policy decisions. I don't think in an interim role, that's an appropriate role. I'm really here to collect, review, and collate and organize a lot of the information that is in place, the contacts at the FAA, at the state, at the city level, a lot of the informational resources out there, both web-based and otherwise, trying to create a platform that the permanent airport manager, when they come in, they don't have to spend the same amount of time that I'm going to spend during these next 90 days getting all the information organized, so that they have a really good resource toolbox that they can just go to and get their answer immediately. I'm spending a fair amount of time pulling that all together. One of the other things I always like to say is a role of an airport sponsor, of an aviation business, of airport users, is the longevity of the general aviation industry. If you've been in it as long as I think you all have, looking at the average age in here, we are a dying industry. I don't think we will ever die, but it's a very slow death. A lot of people don't understand, you guys might. The average age of a general aviation aircraft, 37.8 years. That includes all new aircraft that come into the system every year. That includes all those fancy corporate aircraft. Those are all considered general aviation aircraft. 37.8 years is the average age. I don't know the average age of us pilots, but I'm going to guess it might exceed that with the 400 and some thousand pilots that are out there that are just general aviation focused. So I do think it's a role of everyone in the industry to find ways to instill energy, excitement, interest in our industry. So, is there an EAA chapter on the airport? Because they're really good on doing that. Yep, I'd love to learn about that. So let's see, what else some of the things that I've been doing, and I'm not going to take the personal credit. Sometimes it's been done just as I got here, or through Marika's efforts, or Joni's efforts, or I've just been coordinating with Matt and his team to do it. So I think the day I got here, we found out that the windsock light, internal lights, was out for nighttime purposes, so those got fixed fairly quickly. I did a nighttime check a couple days ago and saw that there was a lot of taxiway runway lights that were out. So Matt's team came out today and replaced a lot of those. After this meeting, I'm actually, well, if it's dark, it's not quite dark enough, but I'm going to do a nighttime check tonight again just to see if there was a couple that there may be an electrical problem besides just a bulb out. So we've got to identify those. You probably have seen that there's a couple taxiway light boxes that are not lit. I think Alpha 3 headed east is out, and so we're going to get that repaired as well. How many of you are hangar owners? So, hangar owners, or lessees, or sublessees. I will, if I could ask you, again, this is around security, and having lights is a good security thing, and I was going up and down several rows that one night, and there are a lot of lights on the hangars that aren't working. And so if I could just ask you to check your hangar lights in the evening that they're working, that will help improve security around the airport. And once I get contact information, that's one of the things that we're trying to do for the city is, we have the leases with address information. Of course, when leases are entered, very rarely historically did you get email addresses or phone numbers. So I'm trying to help collect as much as I can so that we have a good connection. If through inspection we see something about light or damage or something like that, we can reach out to you. Certainly I encourage you. I put my phone number up there, and that you'll probably recognize that's Dave's old cell number. I have that. I have it 24/7. So if you want to wake me up at 3 in the morning, that's what you call. That's my email address. It's a city email address. And again, we're trying to create some continuity. So anything I get will roll right over to the new airport manager when they become specific. That's sort of what I've been doing. Got a lot on my plate that I have and that I'm going to continue doing on behalf of the city and creating some organization. I've been here now on site 7 days, 3 days last week, 4 days this week. I'll be here tomorrow. Following that, I'll be on site 2 days a week. It's sort of going to alternate. If you want to meet with me in person, I'd love that. My office up there, David's old office, a little lonely, so I welcome guests. Call if you want to come by in advance to know that I'm there. My days are sort of going to vary. Next week I'll be up here Tuesday and Friday, but it'll vary days. But I'm going to be available by that email, by that phone, 24/7 during this 90 days, and available to you. And certainly if I can't answer a question, I'm going to reach deep down into the city and see if we can get an answer for you. But I recognize, I'm sure the city does too, as the airport sponsor, we're here to support the users and the tenants because without you, there wouldn't be a need for an airport. It's an economic engine for a community, and we want to make sure it is safe, secure, and has the services that both the base customers and the transient customers need. So I'm going to turn it back over to you guys and see if there's some questions we can answer. Yeah.
I have two questions. One is, can you tell us a little bit about the prairie dog mitigation, and with the snow coming, what's the snow removal plan or contracts in place? Just those two.
Yeah, you bet. So I know that the city is working on, and they can elaborate on coordinating with the department and the city that takes care of the prairie dog. We recognize that it has lapsed in its efforts, and so we know it's an effort that needs to take place, especially during my inspection. There are 2 major gopher holes right on Taxiway Bravo that's starting to get dirt. I'm actually probably going to go out there with a shovel tomorrow to get the dirt off of the taxiway. But it is an issue, and if you want to elaborate at all, Joni.
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to set up a meeting next week with Natural Resources. So our Natural Resources staff has the contractor who comes out and does the prairie dog mitigation. And I've gone through all the emails that David had and kind of what was happening, trying to piece together what that looks like. And so I'm going to talk to Dan Wilford and his team next week and include Jeff and Matt so that we know overall how often that happens and that we get that back on a better track, because I did see that also on some of the survey comments. I didn't get to all of them, but yes, I think that's a concern, and we need to make sure we're keeping up on that. And there's certainly some cost to that, but we need to keep at it. So
I've had 2 incidences, and I'm helping one guy repair an airplane because of that. So
okay.
I think there was a crash because of it.
exactly, that's the airplane I'm
Recent?
no, or before.
Yeah, very recent.
Okay.
In the last, month?
Yeah, probably the last 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fold it up here.
Let me answer his other question.
Yes.
Your other question was snow removal plans. So we met with Matt and Ryan with Transportation Services, John Kinney, which is actually my employee working up at Boulder Municipal and has a lot more snow removal experience because he came from Aspen. So he met with the Public Works team to go over both safety procedures, because the Public Works team is going to take over the snow removal. They've got more equipment, they've got more manpower. And so we went over sort of the safety side of it, NOTAM side, timing of when is the best time as far as how much snow one gets, and the priority areas obviously being runways, taxiways, taxi lanes. So we are working. We believe we have a plan in place. We're not stopping and waiting until the first snow. We're continuing to communicate and refine to make sure everything is in place. Certainly we'll be working with Elite Aviation because they have their own equipment and contract to clear their areas.
How would they go?
Well, I talked to them yesterday and they said they did. So we'll sometimes it's a we'll see when it happens, but that is their responsibility. And certainly any other tenants, one of the things that we've talked about is that, if you push snow into the city areas, that we'll happy to push that out of the way as well. There's one other thing I was going to say off that conversation. I can't remember. Prairie Dog reminded me. Also, we had a meeting this week with what's the department that does swamp?
Environmental services.
Environmental services. So SWAMP is a stormwater management plan. It's designed to help protect the drainage of waters with oils and things like that, or fuel spills, keeping them from going into navigable, I don't know why they call them navigable waterways. Can't put a boat down it, but that's what they're called, the ditches around the airport. So the hangars that are closest to where my office is down here, there's like about 5 or 6 drains, and you'll see blue socks around those. Some of them are not in good condition. We're actually going to remove those, but we're going to replace those with some fuel spill kits, some devices that can be deployed should there someone, either because of a fueling incident or an accident that a wing breaks open and some fuel spills. So if any of you are located in those hangars, just be aware that there are going to be identified fuel spill kits within proximity that can be deployed to try to keep oils or fuels from going down those drains. And certainly if you have an incident, we need it reported as soon as possible as well. And we'll probably put a phone number, let's remember that, Matt, to put a phone number on those fuel spill kits.
Get some signs made.
Yep. Yes?
My name is Keith Griffith. I'm a hangar owner at the airport. And Joni, one of your comments gives me a little bit of heartburn in that you said prairie dog mitigation. Now, we have a long history, and the previous city manager who did not want to eradicate the prairie dogs, and they tried to trap them and move them, trap them and move them. And we did that year after year after year, because the trapping and moving is always inadequate, incomplete. So the survivors repopulate, and we go at it again and do it year after year after year. So I hope when you say mitigation, you actually mean eradication. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, so they'll be coming and removing them as they have been doing. So realize I've spent 21 years here at the city, so familiar with old parts, but also I've spent most of that time as the planning director. So using the word mitigation is the correct terminology, especially when you're in front of folks talking about land use. So my apologies for not being clear, Keith, but yes.
Okay.
They will be out with the machine that captures them.
They do capture them, you say?
Yes. I think they're doing CO2 and killing them and then filling the holes. That was my understanding from what I saw.
Okay.
So,
And I think that the prairie dog problem is related to the keeping the lights working problem, because they definitely have been damaging wires in the past. I don't know if that's today's problem, that they certainly can do that.
Yeah, no, I definitely recognize that. They're attracted to the heat of the electrical. It's a common problem at airports. And so most of the lights that we fixed today were just a bulb issue, so they weren't that. There was only two lights that the bulb replacement didn't work. So we don't know if it is an underground wire issue. Those lights come in 2 parts, and so we're hoping that it's just a connection that we didn't have time to deal with today. So we'll find out, but I agree with you, that can commonly be the issue. And I'm going to look at those 2 lights today, whether or not there's a prairie dog issue around them. Yes, sir.
Well, in regards to lights, we've had a major problem with press management keeping up with lights. We've had some lights are burned out for over a year. The threshold lights on both ends of the runway were out for well over a year. We had taxi lights out for a long time. It should be maintained, it's a safety item, and
Absolutely.
they should be checked every day
Yep.
by just running up and down a runway
Yep.
and fixing them. Number two, you mentioned the lights on hangars. We had a period where we had a farmer off to the north that complained about lights, and we had an airport manager that had everybody turn the lights off. And you will see a lot of these lights have got a black membrane, I don't know, tape or whatever, around the light just for that reason. Well, the farmer over there is kind of gone away. And that's one of the reasons you're not seeing lights on hangars, more than likely.
Sure.
And we had some big lights, yard lights that were turned off, and immediately we had several robberies because the whole airport was dark.
Yep, and
So-
so that goes to my security thing. I'm big on security, so I'll work with everyone to try to get those lights back on. I'll deal with residents that have a problem with that because, you know, it's a security
Well, there's
issue.
only one resident.
Okay.
But-
And then as far as the taxiway and the end lights, that won't happen at least for the 90 days I'm here. So I've set up with Matt and or Ryan, which works with the same department. They're scheduled to do runway checks Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm going to do checks on the other days that I'm here. I won't guarantee you it's every single day, but we're going to get at least 3, if not 4, sometimes 5 days a week of checks. Most of them at day, at least 1 or 2 at night to especially check the lights. And then we've got a good system now so that those could get fixed very promptly.
Third thing on that prairie dog thing, they've been ignored for well over a year, and there's probably hundreds of them out there now.
Easily.
But they should, you know, maybe it's a monthly thing, having somebody go around and eliminate these, because we've had one accident, major airport damage. And the other big problem is we have hawks circling over the airport for lunch.
Yep, absolutely.
That's a bad deal.
Yep. No, so with not only lights, with swamp, with, what was the other one thing I thought, sorry. But what I'm trying to do and what the city has asked me to do is help establish some best management practices. So
Lastly, are you going to take care of any of the deferred maintenance, of which there's a lot?
there is a lot. One of them I was going to bring up, which is gates. So gate 6, I realize, is standing open right now. And Matt is working with a contractor that is going to come over and work on gate 6, work on a hydraulic leak on gate 3, and straighten a pole on gate 7. So yeah, we are working, again, I'm day 7, guys. We're working on trying to identify as much as we can and address it in a timely fashion as we can. And I certainly, you guys are the best eyes and ears out there. You guys are there more than I am, more than the city staff is. Obviously, once we get an airport manager here permanently, then there'll be good eyes and ears. But we recognize that there's a lot to be done, and we're working on trying to put those procedures and processes in place to address that. I'm going to sort of just go this way real quick. Did you have your hand up?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, several years ago, we had a 5-year master plan for the airport.
Uh-huh.
A lot of the people that are here were part of it. I haven't heard any more about what was ever accomplished, or there's going to be another 5-year plan for the airport.
So happy if you have not seen a copy of the master plan. I can't remember if that's posted on the website. I think it is. So you can go to the website and see the master plan. Let me just sort of talk about what master planning is. Master planning is a sort of a visioning process. It is going through looking at the current demand and potential future demand and identifying those projects that are feasible at an airport. Going through the master planning process and identifying future projects do not guarantee that the funding will be in place for those. The FAA typically likes to get master plans updated every 5 years. I believe in the CIP, it shows another master plan update out. I can't remember what year it is. Yeah, 2026 or 2027. Again, those are funded by the FAA with matching monies from the airport sponsor.
I'd like to see some more stuff done here.
Yep. So, you
Which
know,
was on that original master plan, I know I put my 2 cents worth in on that one.
so most of the significant amount of money that is done for airport infrastructure comes from the FAA through airport improvement programs. And general aviation airports gets this much of a big pie, of a big pot. And Colorado is fortunate that through their Division of Aeronautics, they coordinate with all of the airports, and they actually share each other's monies. So one airport will defer for a year to allow another airport to do a bigger project versus its limited $175,000 annual amount that is given. So it's a tough job both for an airport sponsor and the State Division of Aeronautics to manage those limited amounts of money across, I want to say there's 64 general aviation airports in Colorado. So I hear you. You know, being a pilot and aircraft owner, I like to see projects done as well. But being an airport consultant, I also recognize that there are limited funds out there, and it's just identifying and utilizing those as most effectively as we can.
The only thing I've seen done is they put a fence around the airport.
Yeah, the one project that will be done here that's being funded almost entirely by the state, a small matching grant, is the runway markings are certainly worn, and so those are going to be done here fairly soon. And then there's some taxi lane and taxiway repairs that need to be done as well. So, yes, sir.
So I will just on that say that there's a lot of discussion with the city and Longmont Economic Development Partnership about the airport and looking back at that master plan and an updated use plan. And so I've only been here 5 years, but I've looked back at that plan and it was a good plan. And Vance Brand is kind of overdue in Colorado for a variety of reasons, not to mention prairie dogs. But you mentioned policies and plans and standard operating procedures for how to manage the airport. Are you going to document all of those as part of your contract so the city has, what's the right way to manage Longmont?
Yeah, I mean, so everything that my recommendations are going to be documented for the city, and I'm creating sort of a roadmap for the new airport manager to make decisions. Keep in mind, I'm not a city employee, and I'm interim, and so I'm making recommendations and not as much making implementation. I'm
not just recommendations or decision making, but even the simple things like having somebody survey the runway lights once a day between the team.
Yep.
Gate management.
Yep. So just as an example, the runway inspection plan, we pulled one off, and I updated it to be more specific to this airport and coordinated with Matt's office. And of course, Joni had said it early on that in the budget they were going to be hiring an airport operations person, and runway inspections, safety area inspections would fall commonly into that ops department. And having someone here, full time is going to make that more routine. Absolutely.
As part, not just runway, taxiways.
Yep.
And I'll just mention on Alpha 2, which runs all the way to the gate line, coming to the fence line to the north. There's a lot of rocks that get dragged onto Alpha 2 from sort of an impromptu driveway between roads, even though there is a concrete one. We have 2 turboprops and a jet in our complex that use that, so it's kind of hazardous.
Yeah, I know that we're going to run the FOD boss on all the paved areas here. Do you know when that's going to happen, Matt?
So we just did it the week before last,
Okay.
and we'll probably do it. I was thinking, and to be honest, I didn't know how often that needs to be done.
Yeah.
I didn't know if every 2 weeks is sufficient or if it needs to be more.
Daily.
Yeah.
Well, it may also be worthwhile looking, not just Alpha 2, but all the taxiways
Yep.
where rock incursion occurs.
Yep.
And, if people are driving on the grass or on these little gravel access points, maybe put up, a sign or a couple of cones and say, please don't drive here. Or if it's because of grading, come in and grade it down in the gravel so it doesn't, every time it rains, it doesn't get dragged down.
Yep. So when I'm doing inspections, and I'll make sure Matt and Ryan too, we try to inspect all of the pathways, whether taxi lanes or taxiways, to look for FOD especially. I personally, as a pilot, recognize the dangers and the hazards of that, and so we'll try to be more due diligent. Obviously, if you see something that we're not seeing, please just give me a call or send me an email, send me a text. That's obviously the fastest. Location and what it is.
But I think it'd be useful to have an airport map and start highlighting those areas
You bet.
for now and future use.
You bet.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
In regards to the master plan, I was chairman of the airport board at the time. We put a lot of time and effort. Don back here was with me on it. And we got it approved by the city council with a 7-0 vote, which I'm pretty happy about.
Yeah.
Nothing on that master plan has been done. Absolutely nothing. It was a waste of time.
I understand your perspective, but it wasn't a waste of time because it's a vision plan, it's not an implementation plan. So it is the step that is required to be able to get the FAA, win those monies, because if you don't have a master plan in place and an associated airport layout plan, when you go to the FAA and they have money, you won't get it. Because that's sort of the process. Master plan, airport layout plan, money. And so that has to happen in advance of that. And so it's not designed to say that the city or the FAA are going to do these. It's just that when we have the monies available, those are the priorities.
I understand your point on that, but there were some things on that the city could have done, and they didn't, and never have. And that was done in 2012, so it's been almost 9 years. And zero.
I understand your point.
The runway, longer runway was part of it, and that was approved. And I understand we need funds for that, but some of the other stuff could have been done by the city. Nothing happened.
I do believe there were some taxiways put in since that time period that were on there. Okay. I see an arm back here. Yes, sir.
You have to realize that this is the busiest non-towered airport in the state for operations. And it is the least funded airport for operations in the state of Colorado. It has been for years. That's totally a function of the city management and the aggressiveness with which grants are sought. There's no question that at the end of the master plan, it was very, very clear the one critical thing that this airport needed was a runway extension. Neither the city nor the airport manager did anything to facilitate that direction. To say that it's a vision and a plan and you have to have money, that's absolutely right. And the people that have that vision and go after that money from the feds do it. You know that
Absolutely.
well as I do.
No, absolutely. And being here day 7, I can't speak to what happened historically or what will happen tomorrow. And I encourage you to continue these conversations both with the city and with the incoming airport manager, because they're the ones who'll be able to do something.
We have had these discussions ad nauseum. You get the same old routine of, oh, well, we have to plan this and do this. No, I know that when Atlantic bought the FBO at Rifle, within less than a year, they started rebuilding the runway at Rifle. So I know what can happen, and we know what hasn't happened. In the last 7 years, this airport has gone down steadily in management and services and function. The city made a drastically bad decision with who they hired who they got the FBO to. Chuck and Julie have done a miserable job, and as you can tell, it's almost out of business. It sells gasoline and has 2 airplanes, and it used to have 12 airplanes in a full service shop. That's the fault of the management of the airport. And it is really so significant how degraded this airport has come in the last 7 years. There was a huge fight with one group and the skydivers who And that was very detrimental to the airport that the city let that go on. They should have shut Clyde Skies down the first time that Kimberly got up and spoke. She had no business doing what she did. She lost every lawsuit. She cost Mile High tons of money, and now she's in Florida doing the same thing. I think it's very important for you to understand the perspective of what has happened at this airport and where it's at. In the last 5 years, the airport manager job has not been a full-time job. And so for you to have operations and consider hiring an operations person and an airport manager, if the airport is not going to be aggressively run with more, looking for more grants and a better vision and building this airport out to the best it can be, and it's not going to be very big, you know that. I mean, you look at what it can do. Even the runway at its best extension just barely meets the threshold for the jets. We can't do much here because you can't put fuel in a jet if it's summertime. You know, all these things have been brought to the city time and time and time again. And so I don't, you know, prairie dogs and lights, that's so simple that it's not even worth talking about. You just do it. The snow removal plan, it has always been confusing because there's never been a coordinated plan put forth. We tried it for years, could never get it done. This guy's plowing the snow over to this ditch, and this guy's plowing the snow over to that ditch. The snow removal should be an orchestrated deal by the airport management, not by the guy that owns this hangar and the guy that owns that hangar. That was bad planning when they did it, and it hasn't been fixed. I think you're walking into a thing where, for myself personally, it has been terribly run. And I don't think there's any way you can look at it and say it hasn't been. I mean, the fact that there's prairie dogs out there is right to the point. They shouldn't have been there a day.
Well, and I don't think you've heard me say or describe previous management at all.
No,
So
I'm just saying this is the situation you're walking into.
I understand.
And what I'm hoping to hear from you is, you know, this is the vision of how this airport should be, not your day-to-day thing when you're here for 90 days. I mean, that's not as important to us as what is the city going to do with this airport? We know what they have done with it in the past. What is your input to what they should do with it in the future? What should that airport manager look like? What's he going to bring to the airport?
Yep. So we're currently working on the job description. You know, to your point about, and I didn't realize David wasn't a full-time airport manager.
No, he was full-time.
I thought you said he wasn't. I'm sorry.
Well, he wasn't.
So
He had a full-time job.
they're not only going to have a full-time airport manager, correct me if I'm wrong, but also a full-time airport ops person. That's a dedication of manpower to the airport, because the key number one, safety and security, that's the operational side, right? That is key number one to any airport sponsor. That's got to be their primary focus, right? I'm not saying they ignore development and growth. That's obviously a priority as well. I can't speak for the city. I'm not a city employee. It's not my place as a consultant or an interim airport manager to place the city as what their goals and visions are for that. I'm certainly going to provide some input on my observations during this time period. I certainly recognize, I think, as I said at the beginning, airports are economic engines for communities. We need to work with the tenants and the users, not only to maintain what we have, but grow what we have. And so certainly I hope that my input will have some value in that direction. Yeah.
So you know, Jeff, what you do elsewhere at some pretty high visibility airports, Santa Monica being one. Can you bring that same expertise of issues and solutions to this job description so that at least when you leave in 90 days, we're left with a pretty good template of what needs to get done?
That's my goal. You know, again, 90 days is not enough time to put a complete plan together, but we certainly are going to provide some good input to start that motion forward so that they know what needs to be done in both developing all of the procedures. So for instance, you know, the rules and regs and minimum standards, those need to be reviewed and updated. Those are not going to be updated during the 90-day period. And so those are things that are obviously going to need to happen post my time. And whether they bring me in to help with that or they have the airport manager work on that, again, I don't know.
And I understand that your job is to run this place for 90 days, but your expertise elsewhere really lends something new to this situation because you know how emotionally raw we are about things that have happened. Can we fix some of that by creating a really good job description?
Yep, absolutely. And communication. You know, we, at least during my time here, and I know Joni and Marika has commented that we want to create some more communication links with the tenants and users so that you are kept alert and aware of what is happening, and we also have an opportunity to seek your input and to have more meetings like this as well. I mean, these are very valuable, both for us and for you. Go ahead, Ian. Yes, sir.
So I'm gathering that in your contract is not, well, to address some of the concerns, you know, the next AIP funding opportunity for next year, we're basically going to pass on again because we don't have the, you know, the right people in place.
No, we're not going to pass on that. We have there's the CIP plan, the capital improvement plan, is put out for a 5-year period. The Dibble engineering firm, I just got a copy of that today, and that's submitted through CDOT and with the FAA, and there are some fundings in there for certain items.
Right, but not the big, not a runway extension or ramp improvements or, you know, infrastructure.
Those monies are not available. It's not that we aren't taking them because they aren't available.
Well, there's, you know, if Build Back Better is approved, there's $2.5 billion for small airports. You know, there's a lot of funding opportunities in addition to AIP, which, you know, last year, Ray, Colorado, with 2 airplanes, you know, got a brand new runway. And talking to the FAA, they said, well, Ray got it because nobody else had a grant proposal in for anything, and we had to give the money to Colorado, which you know.
It's a fair point. And,
So,
you know, I'm not going to.
I'm just saying, you know, we're losing, you know, with your contract for 3 months and not having on that contract help develop an AIP proposal, you know, we're going to lose another year.
So that is not my specialty, I'll be honest. I'm not an AIP specialist, but the city has Dibble Engineering, which is the AIP specialist. They're the ones that write the grant applications, submit the grant application. So the city has someone that they're working with on that. And I had just an initial meeting with the Dibble team yesterday just to get some familiarity with that, because there is that $160,000 grant that I need to put an application in through the state. That's something that Dibble doesn't do. But it is a conversation that is happening right now. And Joni can attest that I'm out there identifying every source of money that some of you may not know that fuel excise tax and fuel sales tax flows back to the airport. You know, those are reimbursed to the airport every time a gallon of fuel is purchased at an airport. That's how Colorado airports are funded through the state. So there's some gaps that I identified, and we're working on getting those monies, making sure they come to the airport. So I'm working on finding the money that I know of. So, yes, sir.
Is the FBO meeting its charter? Is there a requirement of services and standards they have to meet? Is it enforceable, or does anybody working on enforcing it?
I am in the process of reviewing and understanding their agreement obligations, and it's not being ignored. It's a no issue.
Just one more small thing. What can you tell me about the compass roads down there? It's practically unusable.
It's not properly aligned. I mean, it seems to
on
be
the edge of the pavement.
Okay.
You know, in such a position that, you know, other than maybe a 172, you can't actually use the compass.
Do you know who
roads.
painted that? Because lots of times compass roses are painted because those aren't funded through state. Sometimes EAAs and different people do
Is
that.
there a requirement to
The 99s.
survey those periodically and repaint them?
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly reach out with the 99s if they were the ones that did that to see if maybe we can get it either repainted or relocated. Yep, I'll put it on my list. Yes, sir.
Really appreciate all this communication.
Mhm.
On the FBO minimum standards, what recourse typically does the city have if an FBO is not meeting minimum standards?
Just enforcing the compliance requirements in the lease, and if any tenant is not in compliance with the lease, then there's default provisions that are in the lease. That's the typical process. Yes, sir.
So if the fuel revenues out of that FBO can fund the airport, at least at a certain level, and it becomes an unpopular, dysfunctional FBO, cutting your own purse strings.
Yep. And I'll just clarify.
Places aren't coming here
Yeah.
because there's nothing here, and the self-service pump doesn't work sometimes, and
Yep.
it's a mess.
You're absolutely correct. And I'll just clarify, fuel revenue doesn't come to the city, but fuel sales generates revenues to the city through a fuel flowage fee, which is 6 cents per gallon for both jet and avgas. And then, as I described earlier, the excise tax and the sales tax, a portion of that comes from the state back to the city. So, but your point is absolutely spot on that anytime an aviation business hinders the stabilization or growth in fuel sales, it does impact the budget of the airport.
From what little experience I have with fuel trucks, it appears to me those things wouldn't even be allowed out on a public road. And I wonder if their fuel testing and surveying and sampling procedures are even being followed, and anybody's even monitoring it.
They are.
So we're looking into it. Please respect the fact that I'm on camera. It's a public meeting. We're talking about a tenant's lease agreement, and so we're reviewing all lease agreements at the airport to make sure that, I think that's the other thing for those that are hangar owners. We're trying to figure out certificates of insurance. We think we're behind or haven't been able to locate. Usually your insurance company just every year will send a copy because the city has named additional insured. So you can maybe check with your insurance company if you're a hangar owner, because that's one less communication I need to have with you. But we're definitely looking into that. Yes, Harold?
I'd like to throw out one more thing, we're seeing since the first part of the year, last year wasn't very good because of the disease and everything, but we're seeing probably 1 to 2 corporate jets in here a day. And having been a corporate pilot, I can tell you that the condition of the airport reflects on the whole town. And our FBO is a dump. You come in with an airplane with 5 or 6, 7 people on it, and you got a 1950s gasoline station bathroom, and where they're going to have to stand in line. That's not, these people are multi-million-dollar people in airplanes, and they see that and it reflects on the city. It's like, I've been to some places like that, not very many. The other thing is that a lot of these towns with 10,000 people in them have beautiful facilities. I could name off a half dozen of them.
Yep.
And you've probably been to some of these.
Yeah. Yep.
There's 10,000 people. Sterling, Colorado, got 15,000 people. They got a beautiful runway, a very nice FBO. They get jet traffic in there.
Yep.
Sydney, Nebraska, there's only 6,000 people there. Beautiful FBO. And we got a dump, absolute dump.
It's
And the city should be, the city should realize that and build a new one. And then lease it to somebody that wants to run the FBO. And that's all.
Yep, I don't disagree with you. We got about 5 minutes left. Are there any more questions? I don't want to cut anyone off. Yes.
Will you be around when they start doing the interviewing for the airport manager? Will you be able to sit in on some of those interviews?
We haven't talked about that, I'm not.
So I'll be doing the hiring of the airport manager, and I'm working on getting the job description to our HR, and we'll certainly have Jeff take a look at that so that job description is current and really has the most robust skill set in it. And my plan is to post that hopefully by the second week of November and probably keep it open. Then we're going to be in holidays, but my hope is to have those interviews in December, early January, and then have someone on board by February. And while Jeff's firm has a 90-day contract, there are opportunities to extend that should we need to, but certainly would be looking for some stakeholder involvement as we look to pick a new airport manager, and certainly we'll be relying on some of Jeff's expertise.
I will tell you, so in past interim airport management positions, my employee got hired away from me to manage the airport. So we do good jobs, but I will not be your permanent airport manager. I own a fairly sizable consulting company, so I do teach. One of the reasons I decided to come up here is that I teach the Colorado General Aviation Airport Management Workshop. Just got contracted by the American Association of Airport Executives to teach a certification class for general aviation airport managers. So I wanted to get my fingers really dirty and really absorb a lot, even though I do this on a consulting basis day in, day out. Just being here day in, day out at an airport, really is very enlightening and valuable for me. But I'm hopeful. I know working with Joni, I'm hopeful valuable for the city and the tenants as well. So I love what I do, and I hope it always shows. So.
Really minor thing, you mentioned repairing the runway marking signage. Any chance we can get LEDs more reliable, or?
On the runway taxiway lights, that is an option. That is a common grant funding opportunity. I don't know what the answer is to your question, but a lot of airports are moving that way. It usually will save in the long run. Electricity costs will offset the cost of the power too. So I did have that on my hit list to see if that ever has been costed out, and we'll look at that, but I don't have an answer for you. All right, well, thank you all for, oh yes, one real quick, it's not 6 yet.
Just one other question. There's two areas that have big piles of, looks like recycled asphalt.
Yep.
What is going on there?
I talked to Matt, and what my understanding, if I'm not talking out of school here, David had somehow got that brought to the airport with good intentions to take care of the roadways, the inner roadway area, but it's got too much junk in it. It's not clean. So we're probably going to end up having to either remove it or clean it or something. So that's why it's there.
I think that's the ground up. So we did just this year do repaved Alpha 2, and they ground up the old asphalt and put it there to be reused on the airport at some point.
Okay.
And then I think some came from this project out here that we did from our staff. So I think that stuff was fine milling wise. The other stuff from the taxiway, not so much. Correct, Matt?
Correct.
Okay. So yeah, we got a little work to do with that.
And real quick, I just wanted to say we also have airport@longmontcolorado.gov as an alias. That email goes to Jeff and myself and Joni, so you can always use that. It will also provide continuity, even post Jeff and whenever we have our permanent airport manager on board. So. And I encourage you, if you see a problem, if you see something that's broken, needs fixing, any concerns that you have, please send it to that email, so we'll be tracking those issues as well.
Thank you for your time. I'll hang around here for a few minutes if you guys have any lingering questions or just want to chat. I'm happy to talk with you.
Thanks for doing it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joni and Marjika. The communication's been great.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. Thanks for coming, everybody. I appreciate the input, and we'll continue to take some more from you folks. So I appreciate everyone showing up. If you have folks that didn't show up, remind them that we did video this, so we'll have an opportunity where they can watch and kind of see some of the answers that Jeff and I gave to the questions. And then I will be following up on the prairie dog issue, so I'll make sure I get the correct information of what and when we're doing that back out to everybody, because I have seen that in some other email traffic as well. So thanks.
When you do get hired to a manager, you're gonna have a meeting sort of like this, so everybody can get together, meet the new manager.
Absolutely. We'll make sure we bring some food and drink though to that.
I didn't warrant food and drink, so.
Yeah. Maybe there'll be something.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.